The first thing you want to do if you're considering moving to Florida is to narrow down where in Florida you might want to live. Pick the major metropolitan area you want to live in, or decide if you want to live in a rural part of the state. Florida is a big place. It can take you about 13 hours to drive from one end to the other, like from Key West up here to Pensacola in the far end of the Panhandle. I have so many people contact me and they want to move to Florida, but they really don't know where in Florida. So I've got 12 things for you to think about. Most people are moving to the city or the suburbs, so you'll want to look at Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, or up there in the Panhandle. It's a whole different vibe up there. So you might want to divide up the state that way, or sort of decide what section of the state you want to live in. And do you want to live along the coast or inland? So then number 2, and this is going to help you narrow down which part of the state you want to move to, and it's to consider the climate differences in the different parts of the state. As I said, Florida is big, and while anywhere in the state is warmer than most other places in the country, we do have a little bit of variation when it comes to climate. It's going to be hotter and more humid down here in Miami and in all of South Florida, including the southwest Florida coast. We do get some cooler weather up here in central Florida. You might even get a little frost in the winter up here in Ocala or in the Gainesville area and farther north. And if you're up here, you might even see the leaves change in the fall. So decide how tropical you want to be, or if you think you're going to want that little bit of change of seasons without the snow. In the spring or the fall, anywhere in Florida, you're going to love it. So consider the weather and the climate when you're deciding where in Florida you want to live. The number 3 thing you want to know before moving to Florida, I don't even like talking about this here, but politics. There's been some change over the years. Some places that would lean one way might be leaning a different way now. You might see overall more conservative tendencies, but there are certain cities that might be more liberal. So if this is a thing for you, you might want to look more into politics. Florida is a swing state. Your vote in presidential elections carries a lot of weight. And that's all I have to say about that. The 4th thing you should know about moving to Florida is the terrain or topography. You might already know that Florida is pretty much flat. We don't have any mountains, but there are a few areas where you might see some rolling hills. The first place that comes to mind is Claremont, about 25 miles west of Orlando. Not far from there is a place called Mount Dora. It's not a mountain, but it's a really cool small town with a lot of character. And up around the state capitol, you might see some of the hilliest areas. The highest peak is 200 feet above sea level. When I'm driving around Tallahassee, it reminds me of the Piedmont in North Carolina or even parts of Ohio. So you can consider the terrain if that's important to you. Number 5, you'll want to consider the salary differences for your job or profession. Any of the major metro areas might vary depending on the business you're in, so you can check that out online, maybe on one of the job listing websites, and see what kind of salary you might expect. And that ties into number 6, the cost of living in the place that you're looking at moving to and the median home price. And all that can vary a lot in different parts of Florida, so check it out. In Fort Lauderdale, the cost of living is 20% higher than the state average. But if you go up to Palm Coast, the cost of living there is 14% lower than the state average. So check out the cost of living and home prices when you're deciding what part of the state to call home. The number 7 thing you want to consider if you're moving to Florida is if you want a newer home or if an older home is okay. In general, you'll find more older homes closer to the downtown area of each city, so if you're looking for a new home, you'll need to look farther out. A lot of this is going to depend on where you work or if you work from home, and probably a lot of other factors. So if you want a newer home, how far are you willing to commute? And how does the price of that newer home or a nicer older home in a desired location closer to your work, how's all that fit into your budget? You'll find some really amazing places close to the big cities. Winter Park is just north of Orlando, some really upscale homes there, and a small town posh shopping district. And not far from downtown Tampa, there's the Hyde Park neighborhood with some incredible homes and awesome dining and nightlife. Number 8, now once you start zeroing in on the part of the state you want to move to, you'll want to check out the schools. This is especially important, of course, if you have school-age children, but even if you don't, good schools can affect the value of your home. The quality of schools can vary depending on what part of the state you're in. Do a quick online search using websites like Great Schools, Public School Review, Niche, and SchoolDigger.com. You can find out how test scores compare with state averages, student-to-teacher ratios, graduation rates, and a lot more. Number 9, there are a lot of seniors, and some parts of the state might be more popular for retirees than others. Now, Florida is not the state with the highest median age, but seniors flock here because of the warm weather and the tax benefits for retirees. If you're a young person, that doesn't mean you should give up on the idea of moving to Florida. The state has a lot to offer people of all ages. And when it comes to the party atmosphere that might be attractive to a lot of millennials, that's not really an accurate picture of the state either. There's that, and there's that, and there's everything in between. Tourists are a part of life in Florida, and that's the 10th thing to consider. Tourism is everywhere in the state, but some areas get a lot more tourists than others. The Orlando area with Disney and all the other theme parks gets packed with tourists from around the world. And a lot of the beaches are magnets for tourists. So if you're moving to Florida, be prepared to deal with an influx of tourists during the more popular times of year for people to visit the state. When it's cold and snowy in the Northeast, they want to come down here for some warm sunshine. Those tourists spend a lot of money here and help our economy. 11. Snowbirds flock to Florida every year. Snowbirds are what we call people who come to Florida to live for part of the year and then go back home. They might stay for 2 or 3 months or even 4, 5, or 6 months. They might rent or they might own a home in Florida, but they mainly live up north. This means year-round residents have to deal with busier roads and restaurants until the snowbirds go back home. Some parts of the state are more popular than others for the annual migration. And number 12, you'll want to consider the overall population. Some places in Florida are getting crowded. There's not enough affordable housing, and there's too much traffic. You need to weigh your tolerance for all that with your desire to be in a certain location. Did you know of the top 150 most populated metro areas in the U.S., 14 are located in Florida, and 11 of those are among the 25 fastest growing cities in the country. So do you want to live in one of those more densely populated areas, or do you want to live in a smaller town with less traffic and fewer people? Do you want to live in one of the big cities, or just close enough so you can see big league sports, big time concerts, theater, and the arts? Do you want to live in a small beach town, or do you want some acreage, or do you want a place where you can ride horses? Well, Florida has it all except snow. Narrow down your choices. Let me know if I can help. Thanks for watching. See you next time.